I'm going to sing a song for you that coordinates or goes with this talk. Good morning, everybody. It's good to see you. It's so good to be back. And I'm going to get my little note here, so bear with me. This song is going to be a cappella, and this song is called Stones in My Path. Sometimes it's hard for me to stay centered in spirit all day. I find myself drifting away on my river full of worries for that day. Then suddenly some little thing will remind me that my heart should ever sing. All the time, every moment that I live, thank you for the love that you give. And I want to thank you for the sun as she shines. And I want to thank you for the flower on the vine. And I thank you for the stones in my path today, even the ones in the way. Sometimes I see the rocks in the road, and I wonder why I carry such a load. I wonder why we're limited by fears, and why we have to bathe ourselves in tears. Then suddenly I hear your voice telling me that the fear is my choice. And you remind me that the struggle and the strife make up much of the learning part of life. And I want to thank you for the sun as she shines. And I want to thank you for the flower on the vine. And I thank you for the stones in my path today, even the ones in the way. And I want to thank you for the chance to give. And I want to thank you for the chance to really live. And I thank you for the stones in my path today, even the ones in the way. And I thank you for the stones in my path today, especially the ones in the way. Thank you. Thank you so much. I chose this topic, don't worry, be happy, but I'm not going to sing that song. Don't worry about that. But this topic I chose because I don't know if you've noticed, but it's kind of been a little strange the last year and 3/4, year and 2 years, been a little odd. And I prefer to use the word interesting than to say anything that has a negative bearing, but it has been very interesting. And I have been struggling myself with some little worries that come in. And so I chose this topic for that reason. So this talk is not only for you, it's for me. And I kind of like to think about these tools that we have to use to keep ourselves from worrying as a spiritual toolbox, if you will. We all have a spiritual toolbox at the ready if we just choose to open it up and use it. We have our creativity and many, many wonderful tools in there for these challenging and interesting times that we're going through. I read a quote on Facebook one time, and you know, that's where all the great stuff comes from, right? Kidding. But Facebook. I knew this was going to happen. I'm not the most.
Your hands on.
Yeah, I'm not Italian, but you think I am. That's like I talk like this. So I'm also not the technological. My friend Catherine can attest to that. I need hand holding on everything. Today I didn't even know how to I was trying to put this on upside down. So yeah, not the most technological wonder. But I read a quote on Facebook that said, worrying is like praying for what you don't want. I love that. It had said author, and I don't know who the author was, but worrying is like praying for what you don't want. And I love that because, you know, when you put attention on something, focus attention, then sometimes that just manifests right into your life. Another quote that I love a lot came from the movie. It was a spinoff from the Harry Potter series. It's called Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And Newt's, I love that movie. Newt Scamander was the main character. And he said, well, my philosophy is that in worrying, you suffer twice. So I love that line as well. I was actually very lucky in a way, I guess, to learn a lesson about how problematic worrying can be. And I learned this lesson when I was only in the 9th grade. And it helped me. I sometimes worry about more silly things, but generally I don't put a lot of worry into big things that I can't solve, because I learned that I can't do anything about it and worrying will only make it worse. So I'm in the 9th grade. I'm probably around, I guess, 14 or 15 years old. And I started getting sick every day after lunch. And I got sick, had to go home. I was so sick. The next day, same thing happened. After lunch, I got sick, needed to go home. I'm sure by the 3rd day that this happened, my parents became a little worried about this and called the doctor. And he suggested that they put me in the hospital and run some tests and see if there was something wrong with my gastrointestinal system. So I had to go to the hospital, and they ran a series of rather unpleasant tests, which took a few days. And when all of this was said and done and the doctor came back in the room, the doctor looked at my parents and said, we can't find anything wrong with her. It must be her nerves. Now, being 14, 15 years old, that was incredibly embarrassing for me, because, you know, you're embarrassed about everything when you're 14 or 15. So I was really embarrassed. I had worried my friends, worried my parents, made myself go through these really fun tests, and for no reason whatsoever. But I realized the minute the doctor said it must be her nerves, all the denial melted away, and I knew what I had done to myself. Right after lunch was typing class, and I hated typing class. I hated that class so much because I couldn't type really fast. And I really hated it even more because my teacher, who wore her glasses too far down on her nose, so she talked kind of funny when she said this, and she said the word worry really funny, but it just made me mad because she said, don't worry if you can't type 50 words a minute. Just do the best you can and don't worry about it. Well, if I can't type 50 words a minute, I'm not going to get an A. And I was one of those little kids who was a perfectionist, and I wanted an A. I was an A student. I didn't want to make a C, which is what I was getting on my course, my classwork. A B, I could handle that, but not a C. And I could only type like 30, 32 words a minute. And when I tried to go faster, I messed up. And I was getting C's, and I got so worried about making a C, my first C, that I worried myself into the hospital. And when I realized that, it taught me a huge lesson. But the funny thing is, I was thinking about Ms. Green saying, don't worry about it. And every time I say don't worry, whether I'm saying it to myself or someone else, I think of Ms. Green and I go, don't worry about it. And I'll start laughing. But I did not like her either. I just didn't like this woman because of that. And she was a beloved teacher. People loved her, but I couldn't stand her. Well, it took 45 years for me to realize that Ms. Green was channeling God's divine wisdom. Don't worry about it. Just do the best you can and don't worry about it. If I had listened to her, I wouldn't have wound up in the hospital. It was golden-tongued wisdom from the divine coming through the teacher that I couldn't stand. But it took me 45 years. It was only a few months ago when I was thinking about this talk that I was like, oh, wow, she was channeling God's wisdom. And I said, thank you, Miss Green. I'm motioning to heaven. I don't think she's still alive, but I was like, thank you, Miss Green, for that divine wisdom that I didn't appreciate until 45 years after the fact. So worry comes from fear, which of course is negative, but how do we get ourselves back to the positive? And that's really what I want to talk about today. And I know we all have our spiritual toolboxes, and we probably all have techniques. And I've come up with some in my life that work really well for me. So I just wanted to share these with you today. And one is the topic of the song that I just sang, gratitude. I probably will never speak or do a talk and not mention the word gratitude, because to me, gratitude is the key to happiness. Some people would say, well, love's the key to happiness. But what about when you're in such a bad place that you can't even get to love? Have you ever been there? I mean, I've been there where I'm so upset about something that I just can't get my heart back to love. But if I start practicing gratitude, if I remind myself to be grateful, then I can get myself, it's that bridge to love. It's that bridge back to the positive. I love the technique of gratitude. And gratitude is actually a spiritual law that functions in this universe just like the law of gravity, the physical law of gravity. You know, you may not believe in gravity, but if you go jump off a 10-story building, you might find that gravity is very real. So people may not know about this, but it functions. So let's use this beautiful technique. The spiritual law of gratitude states that if you practice gratitude, if you're grateful for all the good things in your life, more good things will come to you. And it works. The cool thing about it is it helps you to realize that everything is a gift, even if it doesn't seem like it on the surface. Some of the worst things that I've been through, I can find something beautiful, even if the only thing I can find at the moment is that it's going to teach me more compassion for people who go through the same thing. I had to walk through breast cancer. 8 years free and clear. Yay! Yeah, thank you. It was back in 2013. I walked through this entire very hard time. It taught me so much. It was such a spiritual journey. But the thing that made it so much better was that right before I found out I had breast cancer, I had started practicing gratitude and made a commitment to practice my meditation exercises every morning and practice gratitude. And I started singing these gratitude songs that I had written. And so when I found out that I had breast cancer, I continued to practice gratitude, even on days when I couldn't put a smile on my face. I said, okay, I'm grateful for blankets. I'm grateful for my warm home. I'm grateful for my caregiver. I'm grateful for my good doctors. Even when I felt so bad, I literally could not smile. So it helped me through one of the toughest times of my life. And you might say, well, you said practicing gratitude brings more good things in your life. So how did that bring a good thing? But the thing is, I realized that going through that taught me so much. I'm such a better friend to people who go through that now. I have learned a level of compassion for people who hear that C word that I never had before. So this gratitude to me is a key to happiness, a key to life. And it is a spiritual law that works. Gratitude makes everything better. Another spiritual tool in our toolbox is laughter. Some people don't think of that as a spiritual tool, but yeah, that's laughter and humor. And I think we all know how good we feel when we laugh, but I decided to look up I'd heard something about endorphins about laughter. And I said, let me just look up. You can look up anything on Google now. That is one thing I've learned technologically. I can actually find out anything. So I looked up the benefits of laughter. Laughing releases endorphins. They had 7 benefits of laughter on here. And one of them made me laugh, which was kind of fun. Laughing releases endorphins and relieves pain. Laughing boosts the immune system. That's wonderful. We need that right now. Laughing helps your heart. Laughing, this one's kind of obvious. Laughing makes you happier. That's duh. It reduces stress. Laughing relaxes the body. And this is the one that made me laugh. Laughing increases the chances of getting pregnant. So be careful. So maybe a word of warning. But I thought that could be helpful. If you know someone who's trying to get pregnant, tell them to go out to see a romantic comedy before they try to make the baby that night. But anyway, I don't know. So laughter, that's another tool in our toolbox while we're going through these interesting times. Maybe just put on something that makes you laugh. Another tool in our toolbox is attention. Where are we placing our attention during the day? And this is actually another spiritual law. What you focus your attention on manifests in your world. So when we focus with this pinpoint focusing every day on one thing, let's focus on the positive. Attention. Where are we placing our attention? You know, spirituality, I think of it as a light and beautiful and happy thing, and it is. But there is an element, if you're going to live the spiritual life, there's an element of some self-discipline. I find with me, we all have these little things we have to deal with. And I've realized lately that I definitely have some obsessive compulsive tendencies, and I've known that for a long time. But recently I asked my best friend, I said, you know I have obsessive compulsive tendencies, but I'm beginning to wonder if I have full-blown OCD. And my friend grins so big and she goes, you think? So I thought, wow, that's a sign. If your best friend knows you've got it. So I was like, okay. And I thought, well, it's good for me because I'm very organized. I am so organized. It's ridiculous. But I thought, well, what's the negative thing that I need to look at? And what I've realized is the thing I have to be aware of as far as spiritual discipline is when my mind starts that roll. And when it starts, I call it the hamster wheel of the mind. And it starts rolling on something. And I'm fussing and I'm fuming. And all day long, it comes back and I'm fussing and I'm talking to somebody who's not even there. And it's like, why are you doing this? So I've realized that I need to start putting the attention on looking at the mind. What are you thinking about today? Where's your attention today? And Eckhart Tolle talks about that in this wonderful book called The Power of Now. It's not a new book, and many of you have probably read it. Wonderful book. And he mentions this. He says, when we're observing our mind, who's doing the observing? We are not our minds. The mind is a tool that we use. We're soul. We're a spark of God, each one of us. So observe the mind, see what it's doing. Make sure it's the higher mind that's working. Make sure we're using the creativity and looking at beauty and using it for higher purposes rather than chewing on something in the hamster wheel of the mind. So that's what I'm working on now in my life. And I don't know if I actually thought I would make these into a little acronym in case anyone wanted to remember these. So I've actually made it into GLAD: gratitude, laughter, attention, and then we've got 2 Ds. We've got just do the best you can. We've got Ms. Green's divine wisdom. Do the best you can. And it leads to the next one. Don't worry, do the best you can. Drop it. Just drop it after that. I decided the other day I was heading to Mebane, North Carolina to sing at an assisted living facility. And I was thinking about my hamster wheel. And I realized this is my technique that I'm going to use from now on. When I start worrying or chewing on something, I'm going to treat it like someone who, I don't know if you've ever heard someone who's training a dog and they say, drop it. And the dog looks at them like, drop it. And finally the dog drops the turtle or whatever it's got in its mouth that it's not supposed to have. And they're a good dog, drop it. So I thought I'm going to treat when my mind starts chewing, I'm just going to say, okay, drop it. And then I'll get tickled at myself and maybe I can drop that thing I'm worrying about off the hamster wheel of the mind. And dropping it really leads us to surrendering. That's really what drop it is about. And so I want to share a technique with you that you can practice at home, or if you like, I'm going to sing a song actually to close my talk that has to do with dropping it and letting it go. And if you would like to try this spiritual exercise, if you will, while I'm singing, or if you want to try it at home, a wonderful technique for me is to just use that wonderful creative imagination that we have, and maybe close your eyes and imagine that you're going to the river. If you want to bring your spiritual guide with you and he helps you put this basket of worries, or maybe you only have one big concern, put it in this basket and put it on this beautiful river of love, God's river of love, and it's sparkling with light. And you put that basket of your worries on that river and just watch it float away and be dissolved in the light of God. I use this technique sometimes when things are troubling me. So, GLADD. I'm going to sing a song to close today that has to do with dropping these worries. And the term Baraka Bashad, I learned from a path called Ekankar. They use this Sanskrit word, and they also use a phrase called "May the blessings be." And so, what does that mean? Well, Baraka Bashad means "May the blessings be." May the blessings be means surrender, letting it go. Thy will be done. So that's what this song is about. It's actually, and I'm going to do something here to get a little drink of water if I don't mess everything up. So we'll see if I can. The technological, I can do what? I'm going to do it very carefully because I am the technological wonder. And I apparently have a problem there. I won't say drinking problem, though that's my sense of humor, but spilling problem. Okay, Baraka Bashad. Baraka Bashad, blessings be. If you've got troubles, why don't you set them free? Gently lay your worries and fears at the Master's feet. Say, Baraka Bashad, blessings be. May the blessings be. Baraka Bashad. You lift me up from this tired song. When I utter these words from my lips, I feel closer to God. May the blessings be. Baraka Bashad. Funny how seeing the little things is thee. If you're holding on to trouble, why don't you set them free? Gently lay your worries and cares at the Master's feet. Save a rock of the shop, and blessings begin. Just save a rock of the shop, set them free. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here today. It's been a blessing to be with you.